Okay. Ready? Okay. Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Empaths Without Borders, the podcast where we make your problems our problems. I'm one of your hosts, Jen C.
And I'm your other host, Sarah.
Hello.
And today is a little different because we are going to be releasing the video recording of our podcast that will be available also on YouTube, in part because it'd be fun to do, and we're actually in person again.
Yay!
And I recently started trying to post information on YouTube for my business, and I was starting with like breastfeeding tips and stuff.
Oh,
I'm trying to kind of build my audience, so I thought this would be a good way to do it too.
Yeah, I think that this is like one of those, like, I mean, YouTube's so interesting, and I think maybe we talked about it last week when I was talking about my ADHD and how I get sucked into things.
Right.
Like, if people are passionate about something, there's a good chance that somebody else is also passionate about that thing and like put content on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's just like such a niche.
Watching people talk and doing podcasts, like.
Yeah.
And this is well, it's a cider podcast today.
Yeah, it's not a wine. I did bring wine, but...
Are we allowed to drink on YouTube? Well, you can choose if it's for kids or not, so I think...
Yeah! I don't know if
right
we'll get
now
monetized.
We're enjoying stem ciders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a raspberry apple cider, which is very dry because they don't add any sugars. Nope. So mine's like 5 grams total.
Mine's 0 grams. Do you want to try mine?
0 grams total.
Yeah, 0 grams total.
It almost tastes sweeter than mine.
Oh, really? I didn't really... They also have a pear one. I don't really like the pear. The raspberry's okay, though.
We'll have to try it. But anyway.
You can only find... can't find it in Wyoming, so this is...
This is a special day for us. And it is Easter Sunday, so that's why Jinsey came up to celebrate Sunday, but she did miss the egg hunt, so we might have to redo it for her.
Oh, just for me?
Maybe you can do it with Axel.
Yeah, just us, like, I'll have to hide while you guys hide the eggs, so I don't know where they are. Yeah. Anyway.
Today we're going to do something a little different, and we're going to talk about one of I guess the part that's not different is talking about another one of my passions, but that is the national park system.
Yes. Actually, I'm going to pull out one of the passport books that's not yours, just so I can go through along with it.
So I thought I'd go over and talk about kind of how my passion for national parks started and how I'm spreading the joy throughout all the people that I love and care about, and what we do for our kids to inspire them, hopefully. Like right now, they're not inspired about national parks.
No.
They see a brown sign and they're like, oh, please God, please hope that our moms didn't see that sign. And then we're like, look, kids, there's a national monument only 30 miles off the path. We should just go.
I know. Well, when we went to Zion that one time, we tried to go to a different one, but then we just couldn't find it. It was like out of the way too. It was like 30 miles out of the way, and then it wasn't even open.
One of the best things is finding surprise national monuments. So
there's a lot.
There are a lot. So if you aren't familiar with the national park system in the U.S., at least, by the way, on Netflix right now, there's a special series.
I've seen it, yeah.
That, is narrated by Barack Obama.
Heck yeah.
And he talks about national parks throughout the world, which is really cool. But we'll just talk today about the U.S. ones.
I'm a big fan of Barack Obama. So
there's national parks, which are the big ones like Yellowstone, Saguaro, Yosemite, Tetons, Glacier, all those fun ones. But then there's we should Google the numbers quick.
I got it. I'm on the... Okay. Wait, where's my phone?
So the national parks are kind of limited. There's probably, I'm thinking between 40 and 50 national parks. But then there's hundreds of things called national monuments, national historic sites, and national memorials, and things like that.
So there are 423 national park sites in the United States.
But how many are actual just the national parks? Those are kind of the bigger ones.
Eep. Let me find it a second.
While she's looking, so when I was little...
63.
63. Okay, I was close. So I think what inspired me about national parks was when I was little, I was very into nature and the environment and hiking, and I really loved it. And we lived in the Midwest. And one year for vacation, we drove from Wisconsin to Yellowstone.
Oh, fun.
And it was with our cousins who make every vacation really fun. Shout out to the Stouts.
Do they listen?
Maybe they do. And to give you a little taste of our family vacations, like we always drove, and my parents didn't want to spend money for hotels, so we drove overnight, and they would just keep driving, and then if they got tired, we'd sleep on the side of the road or at a rest area.
I've had vacations like that too, though. So.
And it was like, as the mentality or the motto in our family was basically like, as long as we're out in X, we might as well also see.
Oh yeah,
basically like, within any 500-mile radius. So it's like,
oh, okay, not that. That's a big radius.
We drove all the way to Yellowstone, so of course you have to see the Tetons, South Dakota, the Badlands, the Mount Rushmore. Mm-hmm. But then we wouldn't have time because it was all like, let's see everything.
Yeah.
So we'd often just drive through. Like, we never get out of the car.
That's not as fun.
But it still inspired me. So I fell in love with Yellowstone so much over this one vacation, and the West and the bison and all this stuff.
Is that why you wanted to move this part of the country?
Yeah, that's that's why I'm here today, folks. And I've spent the past 20 years living in Wyoming because I fell in love with Yellowstone.
So really we should think, like, we wouldn't even know each other unless it was for your family, the Stouts. So really you should thank them for just a lot of it, like your whole life.
A quick side story of this vacation. So unbeknownst to us, it was also the week of Sturgis.
Oh my gosh, no.
And this was like 30 years ago, but we get to Yellowstone and we either decide to stay, or like we had been planning this vacation, and back in the day you just like find a hotel for the night. Well, we didn't know it was Sturgis, and anything within, hundreds of miles
you can't
like
find anything.
So, and my dad's super cheap, and he also doesn't like to spend money on hotels to like get a really nice one. And so they decided to get one of these tent campsites in Yellowstone, and it was like a canvas tent that you can rent, and they were like $30 a night.
Like the big like
on slab, and it was a big thing, and like there was 2 beds. We got 2. We could only spring for 2 of those. And of course it was the middle of August, and we're from Wisconsin, so we, all we had was shorts and t-shirts. Well, we didn't know that it got to like 30 at night in Yellowstone. So the moms were super mad that the dads decided to go this route, and they all slept in the car, and the dads and the kids slept in these tents, and all we had was like beach towels to like stay warm.
Wow, there was like not very much planning that went into this.
We did not go to Yellowstone to camp, but that was like the option. And I think to this day, my mom and aunt are still mad at the dads.
So, okay, so like you guys.
But I mean, for a kid, that was like a very cold night, but also very.
Like a core memory.
A core memory.
A core memory. Okay, so this was like. Because you guys had planned this trip to Yellowstone.
But we were just going to like sightsee.
But you guys didn't figure out like where you were going to stay? That seems very
No, because again, you're driving everywhere, and so you don't even know like when you're going to be where.
That causes me some anxiety. I'm not going to lie. Like and also it seems like vaguely out of character from what I know of your parents.
I think that's just how you did it back in the day.
Oh.
And because I even know people today who are like, they don't plan like, oh, we're coming to graduation, we'll just spend the night somewhere. They don't think through like, oh, all the hotels are already booked. It's like, I think that's an olden days thing where you just travel because it was before the internet, and like even figuring out, a lot of times you couldn't really figure out what was available until you got there, and then you had to go to like the Chamber of Commerce or a visitor center, and then you get names of hotels. But
well, like it's like I'm just thinking. I also just think about like Disney World or Disneyland, like trying to plan trips. Well, especially Disney World because they had like the fast pass thing, and like they're getting rid of that. Did you know they're like, or they're phasing out of how they had it before? But yeah, like it was like you had to plan at least like 60 days, 30 to 60 days in advance.
So anyway, back to Yellowstone. Core memory, fell in love with Wyoming, fell in love with the park system, just couldn't wait to move back. So it was like my dream to move out to Wyoming. And so I was always just kind of interested in national parks. In fact, I then even got a volunteer job one year as a backcountry ranger volunteer at Yellowstone between my junior and senior year in college. And I got to work in the backcountry at Yellowstone.
That's really impressive because those, I mean, now
it was a very lucrative volunteer position, and you had to do this big application and name your top 3 parks, and they're like, just by the way, you're not going to get any of those.
You got Yellowstone?
And I got Yellowstone, and a lot of the other volunteers that did get Yellowstone too were like visitor center rangers, but I got to like tag along with a guy. We'd like get on horseback and do the backcountry trails and check on them every day.
That's so cool.
So
yeah, some people have to go to like, not that there's anything wrong. Like all national monuments are cool and are important in their own rights. Some people had to be like in the middle of nowhere, like fluorescent national monument. It's like this teeny tiny
and usually
little monument. So
I wanted to be a ranger for a long time until I just kind of figured out how hard it was. It's like almost all temp jobs, and you have to like move around seasonally until finally you can kind of secure a full-time position somewhere. Fast forward to a few years later, I was working at an environmental firm in Laramie, and we'd have to travel to do groundwater sampling and things like that to different gas and oil and refinery sites. And there was one up in northern Montana, right? And it was about 50 miles from Glacier.
I love Glacier. Glacier's, I think, my favorite.
And this site, we'd have to travel up there for a week, do groundwater sampling. We'd work our butts off, like 16-hour days. But the project manager, me and another friend who would sample there, were like, if we can really squeeze in like 18-hour days, we could like get our work done and have an extra day and go to Glacier.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. And my friend Pat and my project manager Linda, I stumbled upon, they're like, yeah, we go to Glacier. And I was like, dude, I'm so into that. They're like, we have this secret contest with each other. Mm-hmm. And that's when they introduced me to the passport book. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But what we would do is we would have a contest between the 3 of us who could see the most national parks and historic sites. But in order for them to count, you had to meet certain criteria. So you not only had to get a stamp in your passport book, you also had to do something at the park. Like you had to go on a hike. If it was like really there's no way you could hike, you had to watch a video at the visitor center, spend a few hours there. And then we each would buy a postcard and stamp it and send it to each other. And so to this day, Linda's definitely winning. I ended up with a stack of postcards from her like 2 or 3 inches high because she just, single lady, she's like just would travel.
I'm just gonna go to all the national historic sites.
But Pat and I still will send each other pictures of like, and the goal is to get like the big ones, but also some really
like rare
or unvisited parks. And so it really like inspired me to go and like, oh my gosh, like then it just opened a whole world of all these really unique sites that you'd never think of.
Yeah. I have Willa's. I don't have mine.
Oh. So every park has, in their visitor center, has a cancellation stamp with the name of the park, the date, and where it's at. And these passport books are color coded by region. And so like the southeast region is purple, and then all their stamps are purple. So you can organize them in your books. The fun thing is sometimes they have fun little picture stamps too to add.
I think that there's a National Historic Site in, well, it's interesting because okay. So there's one in Wyoming, it's Fort Laramie, right?
Yeah.
Fort Laramie, and then across the border in Nebraska, there's the Scots Bluff National Monument, and they had special stamps for the eclipse from 2018.
Right.
Is that when it was?
And there was a special stamp for the National Park's 100th anniversary. But like, say you go to Scotts Bluff or Chimney Rock, they also have stamps for like the California Trail, the Mormon Trail, and the Pony Express. So sometimes you can get double stamps. But
in Willa, she has this one from Heart Mountain, which was the Japanese internment camp.
So you just fill your little book up. And so it inspired me. Every child of mine that was born, I would buy their little passport books as soon as they went to their first park. And, I got to find Sawyer's because his picture, I put, you know how like a real passport has like the little passport photo? Sawyer's is probably the only one that has it.
It looks like, maybe, no, it says peel off liner.
I'll have to, let me go grab it because I think we left his out because he didn't come on the last trip.
Oh, sneaky. Yeah, I don't think.
It's over here. Okay.
Oh, you didn't write in Jackie's.
Well, she bought her own.
Oh. Yeah, Sarah got me one too. And
okay, look at little Sawyer J. And every kid I wrote like something like happy trails and have fun on all your adventures in life. The world is for you to explore. I love you. And then the date. And so we keep very close tabs on these books because I would be devastated. My book has a lot of stamps in it now. But someday when the kids are old enough to be responsible.
Jackie's is so funny. Like, she's, like, super exact. Like, it has to be, like, like, super structured. Like, it just cracks me up.
Well, and the cute thing was that when Jackie and I were just friends, we were on a road trip with the little boys.
Sorry.
And I ended up buying my future son one. And I guess I just signed Love Sarah.
Should just cross it out.
I need
mama
to write mom in there. And so I just have bought, I don't know how many passport books I bought for people now, but it's just a really cool way. And a little passport hack, if for some reason you find yourself at a national park site and you've forgotten your book, they always have little scrap pieces of paper that you can stamp and then tape in here. So you never want to pass up getting a stamp just because you don't have your book.
I have forgotten my passport.
It's kind of devastating to be like somewhere and you see a park and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have my. So
I don't have it.
So we've taken the kids to several of the big sites. We just got back from Phoenix a couple weeks ago, and we hit Saguaro National Park. And that's actually a more recent park. It was a national monument for several decades, but recently they, in the 90s, I guess, changed it into a national park.
I think that, do they have this? Oh, I'm trying to see if date established as park. Well, I was trying to figure out if I could, this is just like a Wikipedia. I was trying to see if I could figure out, when it was. If I could order this by when they were established.
Oh. So Yellowstone was the first national park in the world, and that was established in 1871. That's what I want to say.
Okay, I'll confirm that.
And it's actually inspired thousands of national parks throughout the world, which is really phenomenal when you think about how greedy humans are and that we're actually able to set aside pristine pieces of property to enjoy.
1872,
Ah!
Sarah.
It's terrible.
You were so close.
And do you remember what president established the park?
Roosevelt, wasn't it?
Good job.
Yes. History's not my strong suit, but I do know it was I do know that it was Roosevelt. I was gonna oh yeah, here you go. 1994 was Saguaro. I think that the most recent one was like it's someplace in. It was like a Obama era one, right?
Well, we saw the Black
Canyon of the Gunnison was 1999.
and that was that Obama?
No, 1999. No. So it would have been what's his bucket?
But I thought Obama did the.
No, it wasn't Black Canyon. It was it's something else. I don't. Let me look. Most recent. You are witnessing us doing our fact checking
while we
do it. Most recent that's a B. National Park. Oh, that's like really recent. River Gorge. That's like a new one. That's in West Virginia. 12 newest national parks. Okay. Yeah, so West Virginia's new River Gorge became the first national park, or the state's first national park, and the nation's 63rd. That's cool. And White Sands, New Mexico.
I've been there.
Yeah.
That's where they do the Baton Death March.
And that one was a national monument before it became a national park, I think. And so we were really wrong.
Oh, the dunes.
The Indiana Dunes in Indiana. Not to be confused with the Indiana Dunes in Iowa. Gateway Arch in Missouri.
Oh, well, see, that was probably a monument for...
I think that was probably, a monument before. So, I mean, that's a common theme, is that a lot of these national parks become national monuments. I guess, like, what's the distinction? Do you know, like, why they would change it from a monument to a park?
That's a great question. We should have been researching way before we did this podcast. So we're just going to have to... While Jency's researching that, I'll just share some of the bigger parks I guess I've been to. Of course, Yellowstone, Tetons, Smokies, Rocky Mountain National Park.
I like Rocky Mountain, too.
One of my favorite...
I live really close to Rocky Mountain now.
So finding like the really off the beaten path ones, one of my favorite national parks is Alabates National. I believe it's a national park. But it's got less than like 100 visitors a year.
Where is it?
It's in Texas.
Okay, so south.
It's in the black colored region.
We're just
or the gray. So,
Southwest region?
Fritch. It's a national monument, but it's one of the least visited, and they just get a couple hundred visitors a year. And the fun thing about this is one of my favorite national monuments because, again, like when you're there, you're usually the only visitor, but it's fully staffed. But
they're probably so happy.
They're so happy, and they're so happy to talk to you. So my friend Pat and I, the one who inspired me, it's been like literally 20 years now. And we went one time doing a different sampling trip in Amarillo. And we're like, hey, this is like 100 miles away. Let's do it. Oh, that reminds me, I have to share a different trip.
Our ADHD is kicking in right now.
So we go to the Alabats, and it's like out in the middle of the desert. And it was flint quarries. So it was one of the places where Native Americans found flint to make arrowheads and spearheads, and then they trade, and this kind of flint is found only in this region, and so they could trace where these Native Americans used to trade each other based on they'd find these arrowheads other places. And again, the couple rangers that work there full time they also do a lot of research, and so they're experts in the flint quarry, and they throw spears with what's called an addle-addle. And it's a little
yeah. It's
piece
like,
of wood that has a carve out of it, and you put your big javelin in, and it helps you launch it.
yeah, they're really cool. Well, we didn't actually throw them, but we got to practice.
If you go to this national monument, they'll let you throw them.
Dope.
And Pat and I were so excited. So a year and a half ago, I took the little boys on a road trip down to Louisiana, and we went to the Alabats Flint quarries. And sure enough, we were the only ones there, and the ranger let the little boys throw javelins with atlatls.
That's so cool.
And so I filmed it and I sent it to Pat. I'm like, guess where we are? He's like, I'm so jealous right now.
I know, it really is amazing. And you know, I think that in 2020, when, you know, people were working remotely, there was like a big surge of people going to national parks, which is amazing to see.
Right. It was a little overwhelming for the park system.
It was a little, and they're now kind of like they're like some unforeseen circumstances are kind of coming up from that, like just really bad wear and tear on like their roads and some of their like, I don't know, sites, maybe that's a good word for it, like their sites, and like also for example like Zion National Park, which I really like Zion too.
We went a few years ago with my wife and then one of their other sisters.
Yeah, that was a fun trip.
That was very fun.
Because Zion's not a very big national park, and unfortunately some of the hikes that we wanted to go on were closed due to like.
Well, it's just too early in the season, I think.
Yeah, it was like snow, and I think there was like landslides, and they had not quite. It was early in the season, so they hadn't quite cleared them off. And but the ones that we did go on were really, really pretty. But we did get up very early in the morning, like 4 a.m. to do Angel's Landing in Zion. So if y'all don't know what Angel's Landing is, it's not a very long hike. It really isn't. It's only like 3 or 4 miles, maybe.
Yeah, but it's straight up and down.
It's straight up and down. Like you gain probably like
couple thousand
feet in elevation when you go up, and the last like half mile of it requires chains to like hold on to you because it's just so narrow. And this month they actually closed Angel's Landing to restore the chains because the chains had been up for, you know, decades, but with like the big surge in people, they just have like a lot of wear and tear. And after they replace these chains, that hike is now going to be permit only.
Okay.
So we went right at a good time.
We did.
Because we didn't need a permit. We did get up very, very early, though, because we had talked to the rangers. And we asked them the best time to go on that hike. And they basically said first thing in the morning, because otherwise it just is super congested.
Yeah, even by the time we were coming back down, it was a lot busier.
Yeah.
Which, a couple tips of, if you do go to a national park, again, you know, to follow our rules of the passport book, you have to go on a hike. And so sometimes we just don't have enough time or we're with the kids, but it has to be a couple miles, and you just want to ask the ranger, like, what's not necessarily like the most popular trail, and
like what's the must see
or like something you recommend that's off the beaten path. And a lot of times they'll have kind of more hidden gems. And my experience working in Yellowstone, so I was stationed at the Mammoth Hot Springs area, and that summer I didn't even have a car. And so I just, every weekend when I head off, I hiked out of there, and I was there the entire summer, never did the same hike twice.
Yeah. And
never left that area, and I still didn't get to all the hikes. And Yellowstone is like 2.2 million acres.
Yeah, Yellowstone's crazy.
And so if you're just going and driving through, like, there's so many people, but if you can get out at least a mile into the backcountry, you'll see so much more and have so much more peace and quiet. But there's just like, we took the kids there. Did you come with us to Yellowstone?
I don't think I did, no. I haven't gone to Yellowstone since I've got my passport book. Okay. I used to go to Yellowstone often. as a child though, because
It wasn't too far from.
well, and so I used to, so my stepdad, his parents lived in Idaho, and they lived like basically like, so we used to live in Sheridan, Wyoming, and the place that they lived, that I can't remember right now for the life of me, was basically directly west of us. So we would just go through Yellowstone to just get to their place. And so whenever I would go visit them often. They were like essentially my grandparents, even though my stepdad actually wasn't married to my mom. I digress. But we used to go to Yellowstone often. We didn't do as many of like the off the beaten path hikes, but we visited all the big things. I used to love Old Faithful like so much. I have a funny story about Old Faithful. It's actually not my story. It's from my statistics teacher in high school.
Okay.
So when my statistics teacher was in college, there was a summer where he was traveling around, and he ended up somehow in Yellowstone and didn't have enough money to be able to like get home. And so he's like, I'll just like hang around here. Like I can just like sleep in my car and stuff like that. So he stayed around Yellowstone for a while, and he noticed that so if you ever go to Yellowstone National Park and you go to Old Faithful, they will have times, they have eruption times, because you know the whole reason why it's called Old Faithful is that it's on a very regular schedule on when it erupts. And so they would go and it's like this big event where they change the time to say like this is when it will erupt next. And he's like really into statistics, right? So he stayed there for a while, and he noticed that the times were off, that they were like writing like it wasn't actually erupting when they said it was. And so he like did this whole data like spreadsheet figuring out like when it actually was like erupting, and then he figured out basically an algorithm to rival the algorithm that the national parks had. And so then he started betting the people who were putting the times on. He's like, I bet you it's actually going to erupt at this time. And long story made really short, that's how he ended up getting gas money to be able to go home, is that he basically hustled the system with statistics to be able to guess the times of Old Faithful.
So kids stay in school.
So stay in school. He was a statistics teacher, or he is. But yes. So I really like Yellowstone. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I do think that I went too often when I was a kid, so now I'm like, I'd rather go to another one rather than Yellowstone.
Well, that's the thing is like every park I've been to, I'm like, we definitely have to come back, but then the next time I want to go to a different, explore a different one. But I could easily go to, like, Yellowstone's definitely my home base. But
do you have any? So what are your favorites? I mean, you talked about the ones that are like less visited, but if you had to like rank your top 3.
Ooh, my top 3. Oh,
yeah.
I don't even know.
We have all of them out, so we're trying to just find her passport book.
There's just so many.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's some of the bigger parks I've never been to. Like, I'd like to go to Yosemite.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to... I haven't been to Glacier for a long time, but I did go up to Glacier several times. That's probably one of my favorites.
I think Glacier is in my top 3 for sure. I went to Glacier, actually, while you're looking through your passport book.
Arches.
I went to Glacier when I was in high school, and actually, your wife, my sister, again, if you guys don't know, Sarah is married to my sister. She, at the time we were living in Montana, and she came up and we went on a trip to Glacier, and it was right around my birthday. I think it was like my 15th birthday. And when we were up there, there was like a bear sighting, and we were hiking into a place, and these guys were hiking out, and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we saw a bear, just so you know. And we were like, okay, well, we'll go along, because it was us, it was me, Jackie, her ex-husband, and then my mom. And so there was only 4 of us, and so we found another couple that were hiking. And we're like, well, why don't you just join us? Because if we have bigger numbers, it will be safer when it comes to bears. And so we just kind of went along, and we did actually see a bear, and it was like up on this hill. It was really cool. It was a very good birthday present to see this like bear. It was like up high on a hill eating a whole bunch of berries.
Oh.
It was a very cute little bear just eating berries. But my mom did get a little bit spooked. It didn't help that she had, in a gift shop in Glacier, she had bought a book called like When Bears Attack or something like that. So she was like, it was on the brain, basically.
Sure.
You know, she was very anxious about bear attacks. And she decided to just go off on her own. She's like, I'm going back. You guys are crazy to stay here. And, you know, it's not smart to break up, like, go off from your group. So Jackie followed her. And so then Gus and I, like, stayed with the other couple, like, took some pictures, stuff like that. And so then we started going back, just Gus and I. Gus and me? Gus and I. Me. Gus and me. Me. Me.
Just me, yeah.
And we turn around this corner and we see Jackie and my mom up a tree, except Jackie's like at the very top of the tree and my mom's like a foot off of the tree, off the ground. Like she was not very far up the tree. And we just turned around and we're like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, there's a bear, there's a bear, there's a bear. And we just didn't really know what was going on. And so we were like, well, we have our bear spray out. Do you want to just come down? And so apparently they turned around the same corner that we had. And there was a bear on the, on the trail. And I think that our theory was that it was probably, like two adolescents that had probably like just broken off from their mom. Because it's pretty rare to see two bears, like, have two bears that close to each other if they're not, like, adolescents. And, yeah, and so I was like, Jackie, you had bear spray. You could have used that. She's like, I was just too scared. I couldn't do it. And in the When Bears Attack book my mom had been reading, she said that it said something, like, if you do see a bear, this is something you can do. Which, like, climb a tree? I was like, that doesn't seem, like, if they're adolescents, they can probably still climb. And black bears can climb trees. So don't climb a tree.
Don't climb a tree.
And also, Mom, you were only a foot off the ground. Like, but I think that they startled, the bear and my mom and Jackie, they startled each other. So the bear just ran off. But Which
reminds me, another really good book is just called Death in Yellowstone. And it's just a great book. It's organized by how people died in Yellowstone.
Do you have it up here?
I do not. I think I finally got rid of it, but must read. And it just kind of goes to show you how stupid people are. And working in the park.
Bison.
Yeah. Working in the park, we may have called them Turons. Because people don't do smart things at all. Like, and the questions you get asked every day. Like, what time do you let the animals out?
Oh, yeah.
What time do you feed the animals? What time do they go to bed? Are these elk tame?
Yeah.
It's like,
I do really love the national parks because I do think it, like, exposes people who maybe, like, don't have a lot of experience of nature. It's, like, it is kind of, like, a contained place that people can experience nature. But, yes, there is, like, I remember in Glacier, there was this mom there was, like, a couple mule deer that were, like, off the trail, and she kept calling them elk. And we're like, no. Those aren't elk. Those are mule deer. And she's like, a mule elk? And we're like, no. A mule deer. They're deer. I mean, they are big, but elk are way bigger than mule deer. So Glacier, you said?
Glacier. So
I like Glacier.
A quick anecdote about Glacier.
This should just be our national, like, let's talk about our favorite stories from national parks.
So when I was working in Yellowstone, my aunt and uncle, the Stouts, came to visit me, and we drove up to Glacier, and I hiked, and so, of course, I'm, like, 20, and I'm all into hiking, and, like, survival, like, you gotta pack to survive in emergencies, and so we were gonna go on this big hike that day. And I'm like, okay, make sure you guys have food and water and stuff. And we get to the top, and my Aunt Jane and Uncle Bruce are, like, the most amazing people on the planet. And they're also just very whimsical and fun. And just, like, we just do our thing and meander. And so we're on this trail, and Aunt Janet's like, okay, and she opens her pack, which, I've like packing provisions like beef jerky and gorp and all this stuff, and she's like, who wants a pixie stick?
Oh my gosh.
She had packed.
I mean, quick energy.
Candy. I just love it so much. But my other story of going back to the project manager I mentioned, Linda. So we're still working together. I'm 8 months pregnant with Sawyer. And we're like, there's a couple national parks and monuments nearby Laramie we should like definitely hit because we haven't done the close ones. So one Saturday, we're like, hey, let's go up to Fort Laramie and get that stamp. So we drive up there together, and then we're looking at the map, and we're like, well, Scots Bluff is only like 50 miles away.
Yeah, that's really not bad.
So we're like, let's just do it. So we get there, we do that one. We look at the map, we're like, well...
Agate Fossil Beds.
Agate Fossil Beds is only like 50 more miles from that. So we did that one. Then we're looking at the map, and we're like... What's the next one over or in that area?
Wind Cave?
Wind Cave, Jewel Cave.
That's a bit away. That's not 50 miles.
We ended up getting 5 stamps, and we traveled 500 miles.
I was gonna say that's
in
not
a day.
That's not a quick trip.
I don't know if we did that one, but we did a bunch in that area, and I remember driving 500 miles that day, but it was like the most. Like, we just felt so accomplished.
Yeah, I would. You know what one I've never done?
Which
Devil's
one?
Tower.
What?
I've never been to Devil's Tower. I used to live like 50 miles away from it. I've never been to Devil's Tower. Okay, so then next question, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
If you had I have this map of all of them, which is what we're looking at behind us if you are watching us
We
on
could
video.
look at it in front of us.
I mean, we could, but it's already behind me. I don't want to change. If you had a wish list for the ones that maybe you would like to see.
I definitely want to hit the ones up in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to go to Yosemite. There's a bunch on...
Sarah put the map in front of us.
I did. The Northwest region, for sure. So there's a lot of regions that I haven't spent a lot of time in.
I think that one of the I only really have stamps in the what is this one called?
I think it's just the western, the green.
Oh no.
The Midwest.
Rocky Mountain region. I've spent most of my stamps are from the Rocky Mountain region. Actually, I think all of them are. Not most of them, all of them are.
Oh, another one. So it's up in northern Michigan, and it's called Isle Royale.
Oh, right there.
And you have to get a permit to get out there.
Yes, because it's partially in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be a really cool one to get.
So when I was just researching the least visited national parks and national monuments, a lot in Alaska came up. Because I don't think that people make a special trip up to Alaska.
I would like to do that.
But I think that would be really fun going up to Alaska. I'd also really like to go to... Wait, can I see that? Mm-hmm. I'd also really like to do... Well, I would like to go to a lot of them in the east. But I think Joshua Tree would be a really interesting one to do. Crater Lake is also on my list to go to. I had some friends who did they went hiking in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if they went to Crater Lake, but they should have if they didn't. And one of them listens to this podcast, so hopefully she'll respond.
We're calling you out.
I'm calling you out. You should have gone to Crater Lake. Yeah.
There's a ton of historic sites in the DC area. And so we, of course, because we're weird and nerds, for our honeymoon, we decided to go to Washington, D.C. in January.
Oh, yeah, I remember this. It was and that was when there was one of the biggest storms.
Yeah, there was Snowmageddon. And it was really cool because we were supposed to fly out at the beginning of the storm, but we called the airlines and they actually let us fly out the day before to beat the storm, which was perfect timing because as we were landing, the first snowflakes were starting to fall and they were already starting to shut down the city. And true to form, like we woke up the next morning, there was like over 2 feet of snow. And it's not like out here where you just drive on the 2 feet of snow or they clear it. They don't have anywhere to put the snow. So like it shuts down the city, shuts down the subways. And so we holed up for a few days and we had planned all these historic sites. But a couple of days in, we finally were able to get out. And we walked 16 miles that day throughout the city, but we just hit every site we could. And they were, like, we could see them because they were outdoor monuments. But then we had to wait till an hour before we left for the airport to get to the visitor center to get our stamps. Because the visitor center didn't open till the last day. But we just did our, I think we hit like 15 or 16 and walked all day and then got our stamps. So
that's really fun. Sarah and I did try to go to the Timpanogos Cave National Monument.
Oh, yeah.
It's in Utah. But it was, because, like, I went with Sarah up to, or down, over to Utah? Over to Utah. Because Levi had a surgery. And I, like, went to help her with childcare with the 2 younger boys. But the caves were closed because of COVID. Because this was was it 2020?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was 2020, like the fall of 2020. And so the caves were closed, so we couldn't actually go. And that was really the only, like, even the visitor center was closed. But we did get our stamps, but we were like, is there someplace nearby that we could hike? It was like November.
Yeah. It was nice, but
it was nice, but it was November. And that we did go on a hike, but it ended up being kind of like a almost like a glamping hike.
Yeah.
Like it was like all paved.
It's true.
That one wasn't very much fun, but
Anyway, so that's our little plug for the national parks. So I really encourage our listeners to get out there,
support national parks, and get your passport book because it'll help you. Like, I think it inspires me to like go get more, and the kids are starting to, I think, get excited to put new stamps in. But I mean, look at, like, I just love. I know, I love
seeing it and looking at them, and it's like showing people your slideshow.
Yeah.
Like, and then this stamp I got at Gulf Islands National Seashore, and
I mean,
wait, that's
this is Fort Laramie.
Devil's Tower.
That's well, this isn't mine. This is Will's.
Oh, I was like,
I don't have mine. I didn't bring mine. Mine's in Fort Collins.
Well, we have other people's, so
that's true. Yeah. Sangre de Cristo.
Oh yeah, the mountains.
National Heritage Area. Guam would be cool to go to.
Yeah.
Willa has more than me. I feel. You know what? I don't feel too bad because y'all have been doing this for longer than I have.
True.
Yeah. So definitely, like, go out to. I tell people, I'm like, yeah, you guys should totally get the national parks passport book. They're super fun, and it's kind of like a little just memory of, that you get to like just stamp. Cool.
Yeah. So that's all I wanted to talk about today because I'm super stoked. I don't know, maybe this summer, we don't have huge summer plans. Oh, we are going to Ohio for some convention. So there are several. I do have some. Chillicothe Chillicothe, Ohio has the Hopewell Culture Historic Park.
Cool.
William Howard Taft site, things like that. So maybe we can hit those up.
Cool. Okay. Well, if you all want to see our bright shining faces, Sarah, where can they find this video? Do you know your YouTube channel?
I think it's Sarah Annette LLC. So I will post that though. And yeah, we'll post it and then I'll put it on Facebook.
Perfect. As always, make sure that you rate, like, subscribe, review, and share, because we would love to reach more people. We are very excited to continue doing these podcasts. So
Until next time.
until next time.